Okay, so finding X and Y intercepts are a pretty important skill, whether it be for linear graphs or quadratic graphs or cubics, whatever, any type of function. Now, we know that any point on our x-axis, let's take this one here, we know that that's the coordinate 5, 0. We take any one here, let's take this will be at -3, so that's -3, 0. This one would be -9, 0. We could keep going, pick another one here, so that's 8, that would be 8, 0. Anywhere we go along the x-axis, you can see that your y value is always going to, the y coordinate will always be 0. And so that's a fact that we will always remember and always write down, that in order to find your x-intercept, the y value must equal 0. And because maths is just so logical, you have to love it, is that when we look at the y-intercept, again, if we find anything here, let's take this point here, that's the coordinate 0, 6. This is the coordinate, if it's 1, that would be 0, 1. Down here at -4, that'll be 0, -4. So same thing there, is that to find your y-intercept, wherever it cuts on the y-axis, right, that would be that your x value is always equal to 0. So if you know those two simple things, it's actually quite easy then to find the x and y-intercept of any straight line. And once we know those 2 points, it's quite then simple to sketch the graph. So let's consider this graph here. It's not in the form that we're used to of y equals mx plus c, because if it was, then that's our y-intercept right there. And we know that the m is our slope. It's in this form, so we're going to find our let's go y-intercept, and we know to do that we're going to make x equals 0. I like to write that down every single time, and I hope you do too. And we come to our equation here and we say, well, wherever x is, we're just going to make that equal to 0. Now, I don't normally write this line, because why would we write 5 times 0? We know that is 0, but we're just showing you there, just so you know exactly what's going on. So 5 times 0 is 0, so that actually disappears, it's gone, and I'm left with the -3y equals 10. Remember, don't ignore whatever sign is in front here, so you can't just ignore that negative, it's got to be here. And now we don't want -3y, we just want y. In between the -3 and the y is a times, and to get rid of a times we need to divide. We're technically dividing both sides by -3. When I divide this by -3, that actually cancels. What I do to one side, I do to the other, and so I end up with y equals -10 over 3. Or in other words, -3 and 1/3. So that gives me the coordinate 0, -3 and 1/3. To find your x-intercept, we make y equal 0. Okay, so again, we go back, we have a look at our equation here. The 5x stays. However, -3, we're making y 0, so it's -3 times 0, which is 0, so I'm not putting anything there, and that just equals 10. I'm hoping you could solve it from here, that you know that 5 times 2 equals 10, therefore x is 2. If you didn't know, you would say, to get rid of the times 5, we're going to divide both sides by 5, and once again that cancels, so I'm left with x equals 10 divided by 5 is 2, and that gives me the coordinate 2, 0. To now sketch our graph, you need to use a ruler. I'm just doing it by hand here, so please use a ruler. Make sure you label your x and your y axis. Not asking for an awful lot. And here's 2, 0 here, right, that coordinate, and 0, negative. So 0, -3 and 1/3 is there, and then using a ruler, you simply draw your line through, and we can label that 5x, take 3y equals 10, and that's it. Doesn't get much easier than that. If it's written in a different form, we do the same thing. Let's have a look at one more. Right, so let's try this one. What I love about maths is that it's not going to change. So if we want to find the x and y intercepts, same thing. Y-intercept still occurs, or we still find it by making x equal to 0. So we look up here, the 4y is untouched, we keep that. What comes next equals. And now we make x 0, 9 times 0 is 0. So I'm not even going to bother writing 0, take 12. I'm just going to make that minus 12. To get rid of the times 4, again we divide both sides by 4, but when I divide this side by 4 I know I'm just left with y, and so it's minus 12 divided by 4, and that's minus 3. So that gives me the coordinate 0, minus 3. To find my x-intercept, again, y equals 0. We look at our equation, 4 times 0 is 0. What comes next equals, and I just write the rest of that equation. So this is where you have to do a little bit of algebra here. We don't want the 9x take 12, we want that minus 12 to be on the other side. So how do I get rid of a take 12? Right, the opposite of taking 12 is adding 12. So we're going to add 12 to both sides. I like to just plop that 12 on the other side. So I like to go, my next line is 12 equals 9x. If you're not happy with that, you can write, to get rid of a take 12, you're adding 12. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. Okay? But if you are happy to go straight to this line, then feel free. And we don't need the times 9 here. So to get rid of a times 9, I'm going to divide. Again, I divide both sides by 9, but this 9 cancels out. That's why we did it. And whenever you have a fraction, make sure you do cancel it. So what's the biggest number that goes into 9 and 12? That would be 3. So that becomes 4/3. And that gives me the x-intercept of 4/3, 0. So once again, grab your ruler, label your axis x, y, and plot your point. So 0, -3 is down here, 4/3 is around there. Make sure you've got it on the right side, and connect with a ruler and label. And there you have it. So apply the same theory. You need to practice a little bit. You've got questions like this in your textbook. I hope that helps.